Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Eric and today I'm going to be finishing installing some fog lights on my Mustang. About a month ago, maybe 5-6 weeks ago, I installed some new headlights on the Mustang because they were very old. They're original. It's an 87 Mustang, so what is that, 32 years old? And they were really yellow. I mean, they'd been in the sun too long and they're really gross. They didn't really work as headlights anymore. I mean, they really didn't illuminate the road for me, so it was really to the point where it was almost dangerous to drive with them, but also they looked horrible. They really brought down the appearance of the car. Maybe I'll see if I can find an old photo of the car with the old headlights for you guys, but these are the new ones that are on it now. Bought a kit from Late Model Restoration that came with all new headlights. So it's got 3 pieces on each side, so 6 pieces for the headlights, then 2 more for the fog lights. Previously, a previous owner had replaced the fog lights and put in some smaller ones that had kind of a yellow light to them. I didn't really like them, so when I needed headlights anyhow, I bought new fog lights too. Problem that I found though was that the previous owner had also chopped off the connectors for the fog lights and just used some real cheap, screw connectors for the wires for the fog lights. And so now on these new fog lights that should just connect electrically right to the car, there is no connector on the car. So since I put them in 5 or 6 weeks ago, they look great, other than they don't actually work. So today I'm going to show you how to do some soldering and basically just connect the fog lights to the car. I have a switch, let's see here. Since this is a Mustang GT and it came with headlights, there is a switch here on the dash to make the headlights or the fog lights turn on and off. This one's for the parking lights and the headlights. You can see, maybe in the, well, it's kind of bright, but you can see my headlights actually come on. When I turn the fog lights on, there's nothing because obviously they're not hooked up. So I'm going to use the existing switch and the wiring in the car up to the front, and then just connect the fog lights to the wiring that's there by soldering them in, where normally they would just be able to connect with a simple connector. So, not the prettiest thing, not ideal, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a solid connection that will work basically forever. Just if it comes time to replace the fog lights again in the future, I'll have to cut the wires and solder in some new ones again. But it is what it is. Could be worse, but I'll show you how to do this. Well, now that we're underneath here, you can see what I'm working with. So here's let's see if we can focus. There's the existing wiring from the car, and the new fog light is up in here. Here's the fastener for the new fog light, and the connector that comes off of it, which should plug right into the car's wiring, but somebody else who was previously in here took the existing car wiring and chopped it off, and here's the wires from the old fog light. So now what I need to do is cut off these butt splices. I mean, I can just take the butt splices off, but the wiring is probably kind of messed up in there, so I'll just cut them off, expose some new wire. And I got a kind of a second problem here, is that the wires are short enough now where I'm probably gonna have to extend the wires too. So I'll have to cut off these butt splices, add some more wire in to make it longer, but then I can connect the new wire. I'll have to cut off this, I hate cutting off the new connector off the brand new fog light, but cut that connector off and solder that wire extension to the fog light wiring. So let's take a look at the other side here. You can see this is a Michigan car. It's not perfect, you know, the body looks good, but it's seen some winters, unfortunately, and it's got some rust on it, but, you know, it is what it is. Looks like this side, the wires are even shorter. I can't even get close in there. But the good news is, you know, there's lots of room in here to work. So here's the existing wires again. I'll cut these, solder some wire extensions on here, and then bring it down here to the new wiring. It's nice that it's got this protective cover on the new wire. Oh, hey, there's a little bit more there. So it's closer than I thought. So this protective cover will protect the wire from rubbing on this metal bracket here, so that's good. But anyhow, got to cut the connector end off, cut some new, expose some new wire on the vehicle wiring, put some extensions in. Not such a big deal, but I'll show you how to solder along the way. Alright, so underneath the car, you know, it's going to be hard to solder some things. There's good space underneath there. It's just an awkward angle to lay underneath the car and do some soldering and electrical work. So I decided I'd just go ahead and pull these lights back off the car. It's just you know, one nut that holds them on. So, you know, take that nut off, fog lights come right out since they're not wired in yet. I can actually add the wiring extensions to the end of the fog light wiring first, you know, maybe make that about 6 inches longer or so for both of these. Then put the fog lights back into the car and wire the other ends into the car. That way I'm only making 4 connections underneath the car instead of 8. And making these first 4 on the bench will be easier for me to show you how to do the soldering, and just so much easier and so much faster. So let's get to it. Okay, so now that I've got you know, some extensions connected here, you know, I'm ready to solder. I'm using a fairly large soldering iron because it's fairly large wires that I'm soldering, so you gotta make sure I have enough power to heat up the wires and get good penetration for the solder. You know, for these connections here, you know, I got you know, it's 2 black wires coming out of the fog lights are really going into them. I need one side power, one side ground, so I found some, you know, blackish wire and reddish. It's a white and red wire. It doesn't really matter what side's connected to which side because it's just a light bulb. It's just an element, so power can flow through either way. So I'm just hooking up, you know, power to one side, ground to the other, and it doesn't matter which side. But let's get to soldering. Alright, so we finished the first step of the soldering, or the first phase of the soldering, with adding some wire extensions onto the fog lights. So we got, 6 inches or so. This one here maybe closer to 10 or 12 inches, but once we get it inside the car, we can snip these down if we need to a bit, and make them the right length to solder into the car. We do want a little bit extra, but if you have too much hanging, it can start rubbing on things too. So mount these back in the car, and once they're in the car, we'll see how long the wire is, cut it down to size, and solder it up to the car. And that'll be pretty much it. At that point, hopefully, I'll be able to flip that fog light switch and see the lights come on. So let's solder these guys, or reinstall them into the car, and then we'll solder them in and see how they work. Okay, everybody, so I got the fog lights back in the car now. Let's see here. You can see them down there, and I actually got them wired back in. We would love to show you how to, do soldering again. I did show you on the bench as I soldered the wire extensions onto the fog lights themselves, but soldering underneath the car upward using both hands is really difficult. But then also trying to get a camera in there to see it is, I just didn't want to do that today. So anyhow, you saw me do the soldering on the bench. The soldering underneath the car is pretty much the same thing, just more difficult. So, but anyhow, they're wired in now. So I am going to, let's see here, find the right key and put that in just so that I can turn the ignition on. I'm not going to start the car right now, I don't really need to. Let's see. Turn the radio off. Okay, so let's look in front of the car here. If I turn the parking lights on, headlights on, we can definitely see there's light there with the headlights. So let's try fog lights. Are they coming on? Let's look up here. I don't see any fog lights on. The parking lights are on. Let's try turning the headlights back on too. Alright, headlights are on. And fog lights are on. Alright. Cool. This car hasn't had working fog lights in a while, so that's pretty cool to see. So, yeah, I still got to adjust them. I just kind of stuck them back in there so I could do the wiring, but I gotta, tweak them into the right spot and tighten them down still. But already that looks pretty cool, nice and clean. One thing about these old cars that people don't really think about a lot, it's fun to do performance things to them and soup them up and make them faster. But there's a lot of stuff like lights and brakes and suspension and belts and hoses and tires and all kinds of maintenance that goes along with these that is nearly as much fun to do. You don't drive around somebody that says, oh my word, that guy has awesome looking lights, because really they just look how they're supposed to. But when they did look terrible before, and now it has lights that look how they're supposed to again, it really is a big improvement. So anyhow, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned a little bit of something about soldering. Electrical work is something I've always enjoyed doing, and soldering is fun. So yeah, please like and subscribe, and plenty more videos to come. Alright, take care.